So after a fair bit of experimenting, I have finally come up with a basically 100, we'll just say 95% full AFK way of training necromancy on bound skeletons in the wilderness. The minimum requirements, I would say, is at least 70 necromancy. I was doing this, like, variants of this at level 80, but honestly, you can probably get away with this level 70 because it's just, I have, as you can see, I have overkill HP. It's just crazy. I'm going to go over the rotation and the Revolution plus rotation and my gear I'm currently equipped and using, as well as my inventory setup and my logic there. And then I'll show you guys the exact talent trees I was mentioning earlier, just so you guys were. So first things first, let's go over the rotation while you watch in the background. So first things to note is there are two separate rotations you can use with only one key difference between the two. The one I'm currently using is the full AFK one, basically where the only thing you have to do is press on a potion occasionally to restore yourself some prayer. Now, you actually get potions while doing this. You can see I just got one right here, and typically you can have like almost stay here indefinitely thanks to this, so that's pretty good. It just entirely depends on RNG, so you can pretty stern FK. The other way you can get a little bit more XP per hour, I would say instead of getting 400k XP per hour, you get like 420 to 440k XP per hour, and all you're doing is swapping two abilities. But for now, let's go with the rotation. First things first, you have your Spectral Scythe ability, and you want to have it upgraded to the second tier as well. What it'll do is when you do the first swing, you'll kind of see a nice little AoE here like that. Then the second swing, which is tier 2, you do a nice little all around. This is why you need both upgrades. You need to get 4.5k total souls in order to do this, but that's not that big of a deal. That's like 4.5 hours at 66 necromancy, so that's not bad. The next thing you have is your basic touch of death. This is just to generate some adrenaline. You basically always want to have at least 60 adrenaline at all times. You need 30 for this, and then 30 for your vengeful ghost, which both are the core aspects of this entire rotation. The next thing, is your soul strike. This will occasionally generate a soul or even two thanks to the two swings, so you'll occasionally be able to use this. This is a nice little stun, as well as the a tiny little AoE, one tile AoE around it. So it's just a nice little ability you can have. It's just a little bit of extra damage that you can get in there, so it's pretty good. The next thing is the Blood Siphon ability. This is what helps make it full AFK. Without this, there's a risk that you'll actually die, but with Blood Siphon, you have like 0% chance you'll die, honestly. As long as you have some prayer, you have 0% chance. What Blood Siphon does, as you saw there, all the enemies around me will go and start taking a tiny bit of damage, and I restore a bunch of it, which is pretty good. After that, we then have the Conjure Vengeful Ghost. The reason why it's all the way on the 5th end is because if you don't have the command ability, which I don't get, it will actually go and try to spam it over and over and over again. So you have to put it in the last portion. And that's honestly fine, because you don't want it up 100% of the time. You just want it up like 90% of the time, because then you're going to waste a lot of ectoplasm you don't really need. You just need to be healing you for the most part. And that's why I have it there. And that's the basic rotation. Now, if you want to get a little bit more XP per hour, but actually pay attention to your screen a tiny bit to make sure you don't die, all you're going to do is swap the Blood Siphon with the Soul Sap. What this does is it actually allows you to use more Soul Strikes, and because of this, you're going to be swapping between these two a lot when Touch of Death and Spectral Scythe are on cooldown, and because of this, you're not going to get your Ghost off as often. So what you'll end up having to do is one of two things. You're either A, going to have to go and press Blood Siphon manually to go and get some extra HP, or C, the other option is you're going to have to go and press the Vengeful Ghost manually to go and get it up. It doesn't really matter. Either one of these you'd want to do. You basically are just going to have to do it. But it does get to a point where, yes, you can, for the most part, full AFK, and you'd get more XP per hour. The problem is you do reach points in the overall rotation, because of the time it works out, where you're basically not able to get your Vengeful Ghost up enough, and you're going to end up in a negative of HP. And so you just end up having to basically just do that. So I like to go full AFK like this when I'm doing stuff with like videos and whatnot, but if I'm actually doing something, I'll go semi-AFK is what I'll call it. Now, for your gear and inventory, extremely simple. I have the tier 70 power armor. You can honestly probably get away with tank armor, but the power armor just gives you way more XP per hour, because you'll occasionally see, you've probably been seeing it, the insta-death things, where once an enemy gets like 20% HP, you'll just insta-KO. So it's kind of nice, because you'll end up KOing huge groups of enemies with like your scythes and whatnot. The next thing you're going to want to do is I would suggest the defensive skill cape if you have it. It's no big deal if you don't. The only reason is like just in case if you are full AFK and you miss a prayer, you are going to lose HP, and this just gives you a nice little sign of porter, as you can see here, where you can just get some HP. You want to have a solid limit E just so you can have the extra little damage. Your ring doesn't really matter. I just use a Ring of Fortune so I can have at least some stats on it. And then for your book, I have the Tome of 2. You can go with the Tome of 1 or even anything else. It's just nice to have for the nice little prayer bonus and the also offensive bonuses. Now, I'm using the tier 80 weaponry, but honestly, you can get away with tier 70 if you really want to. Either one works perfectly fine. So there's that. Now, as for your inventory, pretty straightforward and simple. I like to use a full inventory of restoration flasks, or sorry, amount of 20 restoration flasks, and I'll actually come in with 7 sharks and then 1 stack of ectoplasm because you need the ectoplasm to summon the ghosts. Now, you do end up eating 1 shark, so you can get rid of it, but I like to just eat it just so I can have, and it doesn't have to be sharks, it can be anything. I just bring sharks just cause, but have 1 just to kind of, you want to have these as emergency food. Then you want 1 just so you can pick up the occasional restoration potions that drop, essentially lengthening your trip by a nice amount. So there you go. That's basically the entire inventory setup and all that. Now let me go and show you the exact talent points I have and the ones you need for this build. So give me 1 second. Okay, for my talents, the only things that really matter are a couple. You can go and get a lot more XP per hour by adding extra things mixed in, but I'm just going off of what I use. The only things that matter are the Vengeful Ghost, which requires 400 souls. You need to have Vengeful Ghost. It is basically a requirement for this. And then you want to have at 2,000 souls, you unlock the ability Spectral Scythe. You also want to have Spirit Pact 1 and Spirit Pact 2 if you can. These aren't full required, but they do make it a lot better because then you use less ectoplasm. These are optional and not required, but they make you use a lot less ectoplasm, so it's entirely worth it just because of that. And then for this, you want to get to 4,500 souls, and so this way you can unlock the tier 2 of the Scythe, which will just give you the second swing of it, and both have a chance to generate the souls. Like I said, you also want to get the Spirit Pact 1 and 2 if you can, so pretty good. And you'll notice I have way more talent points than I have available to spend, but I'm just waiting just because I don't have it. Once I have enough for literally everything, I'm then just going to go and spend it, but until then, I'm holding off. Now, you'll notice I do have Threads of Fate. I don't actually use this, and I do have the Command Putrid Zombie and Putrid Zombie. All 3 of these will increase your XP per hour substantially, but they remove the AFK value of it because you'll be constantly using these abilities, and you won't get to your ghost in time. So I would say if you just want AFK and around 400k XP per hour, my rotation's fine. There are way better ways to do it, I'm sure. I just don't feel like looking into it, and this is definitely my go-to method. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go back to AFKing. I just want to make this quick video for you guys so you know.